Thank you, Lord. Let me tell you about a dream that was given to me a few weeks ago. This message that I'm going to at least start with tonight. I've been sharing this word around the country for the last few weeks, but I feel like the Lord's going to probably do something different with it here tonight. My voice just a little weak. I can't probably project any more than this because I've been speaking so much. Can you all hear me in the back? Are we okay? All right, good. A friend of mine had a dream about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago now, about me. Called me and said, I need to relate to you what the Lord gave me last night. And in this dream, I was signing to him a copy of my new book, which is entitled Dream. And that was significant to me because even though the book is not really about my dream, it's about challenging people to dream, not night dreams, but hopes and dreams. Right. Partnering with God through dreams. And it's about the power of doing that, how it's connected to our destiny. And dreaming is connected to creativity. The Lord has walked me through about a 4-year journey where He's taught me the power of dreaming. And finally got it to a point where I felt like it was ready for a book, and I'm happy with it. Been told by several of my friends that this is my best book. That doesn't make it all that good, maybe, but it's my best. It will help you if you're interested. I know there's some out there. But the fact that he saw me signing this book was not the significance to me was not the fact that it was a teaching on dreaming with God, but the significance was what my dream happens to be, which the primary dream that I've carried for many years is to see the third great awakening come forth. I believe the revival that we're about to experience, the awakening, is so significant, will be so broad and sweeping and large that it will be called, at least generically, I'm not saying we're going to name it, but it'll be looked at as the third great awakening. It will be so huge. I heard myself prophesying a few weeks ago that we would see, well, I said that I believe we'll see at least 1 billion people saved over the next 10 years around the world. And then as I was speaking, at one point I prophesied that there will come such a move of God in the Muslim world that there will be nations that are considered Muslim nations today that will not even be looked at as Muslim nations 10 years from now. And I believe that. I believe we're coming into an incredible outpouring of the Holy Spirit, and I believe it has begun. I don't believe we have to say any longer it's coming. I believe we could say, you can say it's coming if you go ahead and say it's here, and it's coming. Because it's coming with greater intensity, and it's coming with more strength and momentum, and it will increase in every way. But it's no longer necessary to say we're waiting for it to begin. It has begun. It's awakening. So the fact that this was the book in the dream was significant. And then this brother said, when you signed it, you didn't sign your name, as you typically would, Dutch sheets. You signed 22-22, 22-22. Have I shared this dream with you? You'll enjoy this. You heard this? And so when I knew several things about that number because several years ago the Lord gave me that verse of Scripture. And Isaiah 22:22, which says He put the key of the house of David on your shoulder. And the key, of course, represents authority. And the verse goes on to say, you would open doors no one could close, and close doors no one could open. So you'd have authority to unlock and open. And you'd have authority to shut things up and lock it. So this is now closed. And this started when I was on an airplane. I sat in row 22, and departure time was 2:22, and time to destination was 2 hours and 22 minutes. I thought, well, that's a lot of twos, Lord. Are you talking to me? And I'm not quite as crazy prophetic as some folks, but I'm working on it. So that might be too many to be a coincidence. Are you talking to me? And about that time, my phone rang. They hadn't closed the door on the plane yet. My phone was still on. And a prophetic brother called me and said, the Lord said to give you Isaiah 22:22. And I thought, wow, God is talking to me. And he quoted the verse to me, which I didn't know what it said when he did that. He said, the Lord's going to give you key of authority. You're going to open doors no one can close, and close doors no one can open. And over the next couple of weeks, the Lord gave me that verse, or reminded me of it, or confirmed it to me 40-some times. I've never had anything before or since like this. Everywhere I went, I either stayed in a room with a 22, 222, or 22. I would wake up every night at 222. I'd see the number everywhere. People started giving me keys. I'll give you the key. That's what the verse says. People started giving me keys. By the time this 2-week span was up, I had dozens of keys that had been given to me. Some were real keys, some were decorative keys. One guy gave me his entire key ring. He said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to go get new keys. Maybe God said, give you these keys. I don't know what it's all about. I said, I do. Don't worry about it. One guy gave me 4 or 5 little keys, and they had the number 22 on them. One guy came and gave me a gun, a rifle. And he said, I don't know why. The Lord told me to give you this gun. It's not a very good gun. It wasn't a good gun. He said, it's kind of rusty and old, and I know you probably don't want it, but I know the Lord said, give it to you. And I said, let me guess. It's a 22. He said, how'd you know? I said, don't worry about it, but I got it. So this went on for over 2 weeks, and I just had a mound of keys, and I had keys hanging on my wall that people had given me, and it was just really became almost funny. And the Lord just made it very clear to me that He had given me authority to travel America, and as He assigned me things to do, open doors and close doors, that's become one of my life verses. That's my verse. It's not just my verse, but it feels like it. It's my verse. It's who I am. It's what I'm supposed to do. Early on in the process, I was in D.C. on a prayer journey, and the Lord said, woke me up one morning. He said, don't go with the rest of the team tonight over here or in the morning. Don't go with the rest of the team to the State Department to pray. I have an assignment for you at the White House. And I said, Lord, what do you want me to do? And He said, I want you to go to the White House. This will, of course, be outside. I couldn't get in, but outside the gate. He said, I want you to go to the White House, and I want you to close the door to the counsel coming to the president that is not of me, and open the door for my word and will to get to him. Never really did know for sure what that was, but I had a feeling because of what was in the papers that it was something to do with Israel. But He told me to go do this, and I wrestled with it. I thought, should I leave the team and go do this, or should I go with the team? And I called my wife, and I said, what do you think? She said, boy, if you're feeling it that strongly, you better listen to the Lord. So I went to the White House to pray Isaiah 22:22. And it was a very cold day. It was probably teens. I'm sure it was single digits, chill factor. It was very cold and windy. And I had forgot my overcoat on this particular trip, so I didn't even have it with me. I had a suit coat on, but I was just freezing. And I don't know what happened. I was just early in the journey of this word God had given to me. And, I got really cold, and it was I felt kind of strange. There were a lot of people watching me because I was walking back and forth for about a half an hour, and my lips were moving, but I wasn't really saying anything or talking to anybody. And I knew that they were sort of thinking I was a nutcase, and policemen started following me back and forth. And all of this was very disconcerting and distracting to me. And so after about 30 minutes of this, I had a conversation internally that went something like this. Who do you think you are? You go through a couple of weeks and God gives you a few confirmations, and then you just think you can do anything you want with it. And you think you can stand out here and have some kind of influence over what takes place in the most powerful office in the world. You are arrogant. You are deceived. You are wasting your time, and you ought to be over there with the rest of the team praying through the State Department. And I was just numb and cold, and I listened to that and finally decided I've really just missed God. And I was walking this direction, just kind of praying and having this conversation, and I turned to head back to the taxi stand to go back to the hotel, and a woman had been following me. And so when I turned this way, and she was coming toward me, about to talk to me, so when I turned around this way, we met about here. And she jumped back and said, "Excuse me, sir, I need to talk to you." She said, "I know you're going to think I'm crazy, and I've never done anything like this before, but," she said, "Is your name something like Dutch Pierce?" And I said, "My name's Dutch Sheets, and I run around with a guy named Chuck Pierce. You've gotten us mixed up there." She said, "Yeah, that's it. Dutch Sheets, Chuck Pierce, that's it." She said, "Well, I woke up early this morning, and I remembered this conference that I was in a few months ago." And she said, "In this conference, I heard a man speak on some verse in Isaiah, 2:22 or 22:2. And I said, 22:22. She said, "Yeah, that's it. About the key to open doors and close doors that nobody can reverse." I said, "Yeah." She said, "And I laid there and thought about that. I couldn't get it off my mind. And then I heard the Holy Spirit say to me, 'Go to the White House, and I'll show you what to do when you get there.'" She said, "I've never done anything like this before in my life." And she argued with the Lord and said, "Well, that's about a 2-mile walk, and I don't have anybody to take care of my baby, and it's so cold out." And the Lord said, "Go, I'll take care of your baby." She had a carriage with a baby, probably wrapped in 10 blankets, just. And she said, "Well, Lord," and he just said, "Go." So she said, "I got here, not knowing what I was here for, and I saw you walking." And she said, "I think you were praying." I said, "Yeah." So she said, "Lord, that's the man that preached the sermon. That's Dutch Pierce." And she said, "What do you want me to do?" He said, "I want you to go remind him of that verse." And she said, "Lord, that would be foolish. I feel ridiculous. He's the man that preached the sermon. He knows it better than I do." The Lord said, "Go remind him that I've given him that verse." So she looked at me and she said, "I feel utterly ridiculous, and I know you're going to think I'm stupid, but I just have to obey the Lord." So the Lord just says, "Tell you, He gave you Isaiah 22:22, and you have keys to open doors and close doors that nobody can reverse." And there I did it. She just. And I was stunned. I was stunned. And I was embarrassed. And I said, lady, I've been here praying that verse for 30 minutes in complete unbelief. Now you go get your baby home where it's warm. And I'm going to go back over here and do it right. And she left, and I walked back over and took about 10 minutes, and I took Isaiah 22:22. And I closed the door to the unwise counsel coming to the president and opened the door to the counsel of the Lord. This was probably in 01, maybe 02. It was Bush, President Bush. And then I went and caught a cab to head back to the hotel, and the Lord spanked me all the way back and said, don't ever make me get Mama and her baby out of bed again. To confirm something for you that I've confirmed 40 times. And so I went, and I have probably for the last 10 years at least traveled around this nation. And I've prayed that verse hundreds of times. Not dozens, not 100, hundreds of times. In every state, many other nations, but in every state. In Washington, D.C. I've probably prayed that verse hundreds of times in Washington, D.C. And I've watched the Lord confirm His word and things change. I rarely ever talk about this. I was in one of the Senate chamber rooms. I don't know what this may have been, 03, 04. The senator that I knew there was a believer, and I went to meet with him, and he said, would you like to go to this hearing over here? Judiciary Committee. It's the committee that dealt with abortion. That's what they were going to talk about that day. I said, yeah, I'd like to go. So you couldn't get in unless one of them took you, or unless you had a press badge. The room was packed because it was a real hot issue at the time. This meeting was very contentious, and the leader was a liberal who was very pro-abortion. And so I went and sat there, and I know we hadn't been in the room 5 minutes before it became so heated and contentious that the guy just slammed the gavel down and said, meeting's over. The head of the committee. And everybody just started filing out. I hadn't been there 5 minutes. And he came to me and he said, it's just the way it works sometimes. And then he looked at me and said, would you like to stay in here and pray a little bit? And I said, by myself? He said, yeah. I said, can I do that? He said, you can if I tell you, you can. I said, yeah, I think I would. So he left, and they all filed out, and there I was, sitting there all by myself. And I said, Lord, I didn't ask for this assignment. I didn't ask to come to this meeting. I didn't. This wasn't my idea. My steps are ordered by you. My times are in your hands. You wanted me in here, whether there's a meeting or not. Why did you want me here? And I heard the Lord say, I'm tired of that man that sits in that seat. And I want you to take Isaiah 22:22 and close the door to him and kick him out of that seat. Well, I don't think I'd have had the boldness to do it if I hadn't been to the White House and Mama and her baby showed up. I was as peaceful and confident as I've ever been. I just looked at that chair, and I don't feel I'm not presumptuous enough to think I can just do this anytime I want to. But when the Lord speaks to me, I know I have authority to do it. And it was just very simple. I pointed at the chair and said, "You, sir, have crossed the line." He wasn't in it, of course. "You've crossed the line. The Lord wants you out of there." I say, "Your position will be removed, and you'll lose that seat. Somebody else will sit there." 2 weeks later, he was out. The Lord has had me do some pretty wild stuff. I remember on the 50-state tour, Chuck Pierce and I went all 50 states and asked the Lord to give us His word for every state. And we prophesied into each state, and we preached the word of the Lord. It was just a powerful, powerful tour. I remember we were in Texas. And I said something, and Chuck would do this frequently. He and I flow very well together. It's very common for me to be speaking and him to come up while I'm speaking and begin to prophesy. There were some services where he probably interrupted me 6 or 7 times to prophesy. He got to the point where he just kept a microphone in the front row, and when he had something, he'd just flip it on and start prophesying. It scared me half to death once or twice. I finally said, "Wave at me or something before you start that. You make a powerful point and then you hear this, 'Thus saith the Lord.'" Give me some kind of warning. I said, "Okay, I'll stand up." But I've said something in Texas, and I don't know what it was, but it was something about the destiny hanging over that state. And he told me later, when you said it, the heavens opened, and the Lord pulled me up in the Spirit and said, "Go up and prophesy what I give you, and do not think about it." You know, he jumped up out of his seat, headed to the platform. I saw him come and handed him the microphone, stepped back out of his way, and he begins to prophesy. And as it's bubbling up out of his spirit, he hears himself prophesying that if we would pray right then, Saddam would be captured within 7 days. And when he finished the prophecy, I said, I'm just kind of whispering to it, and I said, "Did you just say what I think you said?" And he looked at me like, "Yes, I did. And I can't believe I said it." And he handed me the mic and said, "Do something." And I wanted to say, "You do something, you prophesied it." But the word of the Lord was, if you pray.
Right.
I thought, okay, we'll just pray. We turned that service into at that point, about a 15 to 20 minute segment of just prayer. Commanded him to be exposed. We closed the door to the witchcraft, the occult spirit that was keeping him hidden. And commanded that he would be exposed. And there were some men there, servicemen in uniform. We had one of them come up and pray, and then we gathered around him and we prayed that our military men would be anointed of God to do this. And 3 days later, that man that we prayed over, that man's unit, pulled Saddam Hussein out of that hole.
Wow.
I've used it, making a strong point about this verse, Isaiah 22:22, because for the Lord for me to say I was signing that number in the book, it was the Lord. He was speaking to me through that dream. I began to meditate on it, pray over it. There's a renewed emphasis of this number for me, this verse. Would you believe in the last 3 meetings I've done, 3 people have come up and given me keys? That hadn't happened to me for several years now. God is re-emphasizing this verse. Well, it is, see, as I travel the country, my calling has been that of a forerunner, to go ahead and prepare the way. And I'm not the only one, but that's my assignment. I'm a forerunner. Like John the Baptist, who prepared the way for what was coming. So I've been traveling and trying to stir up prayer and the word of the Lord and strategy over regions and breakthrough over regions and open doors and closed doors to prepare the way for this third great awakening. So it's a forerunning verse for me that has been used to open the heavens and close the door to demonic structures. Isaiah 64 says, rend the heavens and come down. Open the heavens. Open. Close the gate of unrighteousness. Open the gate to the Lord. I'm just working my way toward something. When this prophet who had the dream, when he woke up, and when he asked the Lord, what is this 22:22 thing? Is it Isaiah 22:22? He knew my story. And I asked him when he gave me the dream, well, what is that? Why did I do it twice? What is it Isaiah 22:22? And he said, no, it has to include that if it's a word to you. I mean, obviously, it has to do with Isaiah 22:22. But he said, I asked the Lord about it when I woke up, and he said, go look up in Strong's Concordance the Hebrew word number 22:22, and then go to the Greek word number 22:22. And he said the Hebrew word 22:22 is a word that means a pouring rain. I'll just let that sink in. A downpour. A flowing rain or river or a heavy rain. The Greek word 22:22 is zoe, word for God's life. You don't even have to be prophetic to put that together. It's an outpouring of God's life. Pictured in Scripture often as the rain, the outpouring. And he said, the Lord says to you, because that would be awakening. The outpouring of life would be the revival I've been asking for. He said to me, the dream of the outpouring of God's life is here. And those who have dreamed with God for awakening are about to see the realization of the dream. I would have already been saying that because I've been saying it's here. But to have a dream like that dropped on me, I tell you, it's here. We're moving into awakening. Signs, wonders, miracles, salvation. I mean, God's fixing to rock the boat big time. Amen. He's coming like a rushing stream. The river of God is about to be released in amazing ways.
Amen.
I've been asking the Lord, what do you want me to do with this word tonight? You know, because I had another word stirring in me. And it's encouraging. I think that's an encouraging dream, and that testimony is encouraging. But I don't think the Lord just wanted to encourage us. I feel like He's saying something else. So I'm saying, you know, I've been, let me just back up and do it this way. As I've been traveling around the nation now, I can feel the difference. Everywhere I go, it's very obvious to me awakening is in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Revival is in the atmosphere. The prophets are calling them, they're talking about portals. You know, a portal is just an open heaven. It's a place where heaven and earth connect. I don't care what you call it. Some people call them gates. Some people just say it's a window, a door in the spirit. Doesn't really matter to me how you say it. I guess prophets just kind of like the word portal right now. But it's a place that heaven and earth can connect. And I've been sensing these, but I'm trying to help people discern and see that we have moved into this season and that there are open heavens, and because it's like our discernment hasn't caught up with where God is.
Yeah.
We're still back a year or two trying to make something happen or get to a point where in reality we're already there. But if you don't know that and you don't believe it, you're gonna act like it's not happening or not available. You're gonna just keep doing what you've been doing. It's kind of like in Jesus' day when He walked the earth. They've been looking for God to show up, and when He did, they couldn't recognize Him. Because their traditions and their blindness and their religion kept them from recognizing the one they've been waiting for.
Right.
And they probably at that wall doing some of this, prayed for Him to come, and He's standing there watching them. Hey guys, I'm here.
Right. That's right.
And I feel like the Lord just wants to awaken us to the fact that we need to start thinking and operating differently, because we've come to a point where it's here.
Yeah.
If people would start fasting and praying for signs and wonders, they start breaking out, I mean, all over the place right now. It's here. It's here. It's not even hard. It's not complicated. I remember when my dad started moving in miracles when it was 1967. He'd been a Nazarene. Got filled with the Spirit. When they found out he spoke with tongues, they kicked him out. He ended up over with some Pentecostals, and then somehow he got connected with Gordon Lindsay and some people that were moving in signs and wonders. He'd never seen anything like it. He didn't know anything about it, but he knew it was real, and he decided he would like to see God do that in his life. And he started praying in the Spirit a lot and fasting. And he didn't fast a lot. He fasted for 2-3 days at a time. He wasn't fasting like 21 days or 40 days. He was just on small fast, but he prayed in the Spirit a lot. He didn't know the first thing about what I'm about to describe to you. He'd never done it before. And when I asked him how it worked, he said, "I don't know." But he stood up after talking to the Lord about this and fasting and praying about it for a few weeks. He went to the church service. We had a Sunday night service. On that Sunday night, and I watched him do this. I had no idea what he was doing. He stood up there and he looked distracted. And he just was staring at a particular part of the room.
Yeah.
He just kind of, I thought, what is he doing? And finally he said, "You, stand up." And he said, "Yeah, you." And he started giving them a word of knowledge. I don't even know if he knew what it was called. He starts talking about what's wrong with them physically. He started talking about what happened to them that caused it and how long it had been going on. And then he said, "The Lord's going to heal you tonight." And they're just crying because this guy's reading their mail. And he prays for them and they get healed. And he did that with about 15 people. And I watched this, and I'd never seen anything like it before. If this was 67, then I'd have been 13. I just never seen anything like it. I've never seen him do it. And I was just freaked out watching this. And at the end of the service, we were walking from the church to the parsonage, and I said, "Dad, how did you know that stuff?" He said, "Well, the Lord was just telling me." I said, "Well, how does he do that? What was happening?" He said, "I don't know." He did. He said, "I don't know." He said, "I don't know either." He said, "It's just like, you know how if somebody says count to 10, it's just in there and you can count to 10, you just knew it." He said, "I just looked at him and I just knew it. It's like somebody had told me about him." I said, "Well, how does this happen?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, what, how can you do this?" He said, "I don't know. I've just been praying in the Spirit a lot. And I've been fasting." And I didn't know what he said. I didn't know it was going to happen. He just stood up and there it was. Now, I'm telling you that because the Lord he doesn't want us to complicate this. You don't have to work up awakening or revival or miracles, signs and wonders. You just have to connect. You've got to connect. You've got to connect with him. You've got to be hungry. You've got to be passionate about it and hungry for it. But you don't have to be smart enough. It's not about how much you know. It's who you're connected with. And I'm traveling around the country now, and I'm watching churches just do business as usual. We're going to do these number of songs, and we're going to have this going on, and I'm going to preach a nice little message. And then at the end, we'll pray some prayer. "Come on, Lord, visit us." And I'm going, he can't get through your routine. It's called religion. He's ready to do something different, but you're stuck in this stuff, this methodology. And I want to just shake him and say, "Don't you know what time it is?" He's ready to do this. I feel like in this region, there's an opening. I'm not going to say, "Oh, the heavens are just open." I'm going to say, if you're prophetic, there's a portal. If you're not prophetic, there's a window. I'm going to say that the atmosphere is cleared. The demonic structures and the ceiling that's been over this region. Now, it's not, listen to me. I don't feel this quite as open everywhere I go. There's some places, we were talking about a place on the way here tonight. They had a great window of opportunity. They missed it. They may get it back, but they don't have an open heaven at all. So don't think I just go everywhere and say that. But I'm telling you right now, this region right here, where you are, there's a window in the Spirit where you can just go right up and get whatever you want. When somebody connects the way God wants, you're going to start seeing salvations, deliverances. Major deliverances are going to start happening. I'm talking about people crying out just in the presence, and demons start leaving during the worship. Signs, wonders, miracles. And I just felt the Lord said to me tonight, just get up there and start decreeing over this region. That the door is open. That the window is open. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start praying. I'm going to start decreeing that over this region. What are the cities within an hour or so radius of this region? Benson.
Foley, Alabama. Come on. Come on.
Did I have one knowledgeable person stand up and rattle off some of these cities? So, come on, somebody can do it. Go ahead.
Crestview, Laurel Hill, Baker, Hope, Pensacola, Destin, North Walton, Panama City,
What'd you say? Man. Something stirring in you? What are you looking at me like that for? Come up here if you got something.
You got to see. I want you to see this first. When Nico and I were driving over here tonight, I saw something I've never seen before. And I took a picture of it. Nico was with me. There were two rainbows. You can see them clearly in this picture, and they paralleled the interstate. And we saw this column of pouring down rain. So much so, I finally said, I got to see what's going to happen here. And I began to record it as we were driving over here tonight. And the Lord said that this is the promise on Interstate 10 as we were coming here. And you can see, look, this rainbow is on each side of the highway. And as we drove through that,
I wish y'all could see that this is really good.
as we drove, it's like, that rainbow was right on each side of the interstate. It's like we were driving through these parallel rainbows on I-10. And it rained as hard as it could for maybe 3 minutes, right? But we could see that column of rain as we were driving over here tonight. And when you were talking, and it was absolutely put in bounds by this rainbow. Look at that. And when you started talking, and And when you were talking, it was like I started hitting Nico because I was like, oh my God. And that's wicked, and it was dry. And when you're talking, the Lord just said, this is the promise. This is the season. This is the outpour. This is the time. And I felt like, look at that rainbow right there. It was like it came down right in front of, look right there. Can you see it?
Right here in front of the car. You drove into it.
We drove right through it. And it lasted about 3 minutes, didn't it, Nico? Nico, no, this. And so when you were talking, everything in me was stirring to say, this is the time. This is my promise. This is the promise of my outpouring that's coming into this region. And I thought I'd show it to you after the service or something. But I'm just like,
You know what? Turn this on. You know what happened? Susie's.
You know what happened? You moved from Kairos into Horeos. Now, Doug will have to explain that to you. But I'm telling you, moved from Kairos into Horeos when he went through that period of time. There was a portal, he drove right smooth into it, and all of a sudden he got right into the right time. Just right into it, just smooth into it.